The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. This is Jesse Heller, Marketing Director at FayeBSG's Group. You are joining our third part in a four-part series where we are talking about Sugar Integrate and the best practices around Sugar Integrate. Presenting to us today is Matthew Marham from Sugar CRM. Really excited to have him back with us again. And before we get going, I'm just going to quickly reintroduce you to FayeBSG's Group in case you were not aware. We are a longtime Sugar CRM partner and Sugar CRM's Global Reseller of the Year for 2020. We've been in the Sugar space since 2009, and we've got offices throughout the United States, but our corporate headquarters are in Southern California. And on the next slide, you'll see just a recap of some of the integrations that we have built with Sugar, from marketing automation integrations to enhancements to the Sugar platform. And if you're interested in any of those, you can head on over to FayeBSG.com or reach out to me and I can help you out with any questions you may have. So if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. I'll be monitoring those as we go throughout today's presentation. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And Matt, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Great, thank you, Jesse. So this is Matt Marham from Sugar CRM. I'm the Director of ISV Alliances at Sugar CRM, and I run essentially the Sugar Integrate product for Sugar. But before we talk about Sugar Integrate, I'd like to talk a little bit about why integration with an ERP is so important for your CRM, in particular Sugar Cell and Sugar Enterprise, which I'm sure you all use. So why is it so important to integrate Sugar Cell with your ERP? So first off, hopefully everybody's aware that the sale isn't really done when the opportunity closes. Yeah, the sales rep has gone off and drinking a beer somewhere, but that's where the back office processes usually kick in on fulfilling that order and collecting payment and invoicing customers and things like that. All the real sort of important processes that really finish that sales process. And one of the things that happens when you have a back office system like an ERP is that it's often an information silo that contains a lot of really valuable data about your customer's financial history that a sales rep working an opportunity probably doesn't see, right? Doesn't actually see unless that information is connected back. If you don't have an ERP connected with your CRM, then sales doesn't have a good idea of what's the customer bought and actually what are they paid for, right? Is this customer paying their bills on time? That could be a good thing to know before you try and go and sell them an additional product, right, or a service. Executives, they rely on a CRM. They're usually eager to look at a customer experience platform like Sugar to have that sort of 360-degree single view of the customer. And if that ERP data, which contains all this valuable sort of back office information about a customer, isn't collected in one place, you don't have that single source of truth where you can see the full customer life cycle. So beyond just sort of those visibility challenges, these information silos that happens when you have sort of discrete CRM system and a discrete ERP system that isn't talking to each other, there's tons of like business processes that span these two systems that end up just being manual, right? All right, so the sales rep closes the opportunity or a quote is accepted, but now somebody's got to log into a separate ERP system and type in all that information, manually enter that information instead of having that process handed seamlessly in an automated way across from the CRM. So that there's a manual process. We all know manual processes, they can be inefficient. There can be errors, and that's a big problem, which can delay like a fulfillment of a customer order. And then finally, if you're using Sugar to do quoting, one of the big challenges, if you don't have your ERP integrated with your CRM, those quotes can be inaccurate. You might not be quoting the right price. You might not be quoting based on actual inventory data. So you can run into a problem where you're sharing an inaccurate quote with a customer, and gosh, if a customer accepts an inaccurate quote, instead of having like something that should be a done deal, you've got a nightmare on your hands because you won't be able to get them what you agreed to provide them. So in the end, what's the solution? Obviously, you want to automate that quote to cash process so that you can deliver a quote confidently to a customer and have that whole order fulfillment process run seamlessly and have all that information visible within the CRM from that customer record without any of that manual overhead. You want to be able from that customer record to see all that financial history. And again, quoting confidently is very important. So when we talk about a typical quote to cash process, this is just sort of a high level diagram of sort of the different concepts that are usually involved, or really objects, in the CRM and in the ERP system. So in Sugar Sell, we have a concept of an opportunity, a quote, a product catalog. Depending on your sales process, you might be using opportunities, you might be using quotes, but what you want to see is that whenever the opportunity closes or whenever that quote is accepted, that you see that sales order created automatically in the ERP system, and which allows the back office processes that kick in for fulfillment, invoicing, payment, and then you also want to see that product catalog in Sugar properly updated based on real inventory and product data from the ERP. So ERP, not all companies use something like a full-blown ERP. It's an enterprise resource planning tool. That's, large businesses. It sounds like something that only large businesses use, but in reality, every company out there, large and small, has some sort of accounting system or financial system, and being able to have that financial data within Sugar so that from a single place everything you need to know about your customer is really valuable. And even if and also many companies nowadays, they're doing a lot of e-commerce sales via their website. People are buying product from your website, and so you're usually using an e-commerce system to back that up. So that's got a ton of other sort of financial order history data that ought to be brought back into Sugar. So here's my opinion of what you should expect from as a minimum expectation of an integration between your ERP or a finance system and Sugar Sell. First off, customers got your sales rep, your any user of the CRM, they've got to have an easy way to access that customer financial information in one place, right? So syncing like order, invoices, payment data back into Sugar Sell, or as full records, like so that you have all of your invoice records in Sugar Sell. That's one way to do it. Or if it makes more sense, just providing like a summary of that data so that you've got a summary of the recent sales history with the customer, so that your rep is armed with that information as they're working with that customer. Also, you got to make sure those quotes are accurate. So that product catalog and inventory data has got to be in sync with what's used in Sugar Sell when your reps are quoting customers. And then finally, you want to be able to support that full visibility right from a new lead coming into the system from marketing automation or from your website all the way to a sales opportunity that you've worked to a close, to collecting payment in the end, collecting cash in the end. So being able to support that full process and have visibility across that entire process in one place, that's what you should expect. So hopefully everybody agrees that integrating their ERP or finance system with Sugar is a really good idea, something you need to do. But I want to point out something that some industry trends in ERP that I think affect how you should do it, right? The decisions and the technology you should use to do it. So first off, historically, ERP implementations are big, expensive, and on-premise. Like ERP is like a code word for a giant, expensive implementation. And at least that's what I think of when I hear people talk about ERPs. These giant monolithic applications. But in reality, ERP is changing. That industry is changing along with the rest of kind of the software industry, right? Where everybody's moving away from on-prem applications to the cloud. And I think ERP's been slower as an industry, as a software sector to move to the cloud, but it is happening, right? ERP vendors are starting to move their customers to the cloud. In fact, SAP, they're the market leader, the world leader in ERP during the height of COVID-19, which I know is not over, but during the height of a lot of the lockdowns in April, SAP reported their new cloud revenue was almost 5 times bigger than their on-prem revenue. So this with COVID-19, you're starting to see, frankly, an acceleration of this this transition to cloud in the ERP space. And in reality, like the ERP industry has been talking about for years about this concept of what Gartner calls a postmodern ERP. So that's the whole trend away from these monolithic on-prem implementations to more of a best-in-breed point solutions that are based in the cloud. So instead of having one giant, ERP implementation that you had ran on-prem that tried to solve all your problems, when you go to the cloud, you have a lot more flexibility to pick best-in-breed solutions. So you might replace one monolithic ERP with, a half dozen point solutions that are cloud-based, right? And so that's kind of the trends in the industry. And as ERP is moving to be cloud-centric, I remind you that cloud apps are API-centric, and so is Sugar Integrate. So within the Sugar Integrate catalog today, there's a number of the different market-leading ERPs and finance systems are very well represented. So everybody from the likes of SAP, for the really big enterprise ERP, all the way down to QuickBooks. So there's a wide breadth of supported cloud-based ERP solutions in the catalog, and many more are being added all the time. So let's say though today you're not on one of these cloud-based ERPs, you're still using an on-prem ERP. Well, chances are you're probably thinking about that transition to cloud, right? Because either your ERP vendor is trying to push you to the cloud, or you're going to move. You're assessing your options, right? So first off, if you have an on-prem ERP today, a lot of them have APIs, and if that ERP is web accessible, then you can use Sugar Integrate to connect to that. That's no problem. So you're good to go. Now, a lot of times ERP systems are carefully secured behind a firewall. Well, we have a couple options there for Sugar Integrate to connect to those. So first off, there's this technology called Ground to Cloud, which is a secure agent that can be installed behind your VPN, or essentially behind your firewall, and it'll open a secure tunnel back to the Sugar Cloud, to Sugar Integrate running in the Sugar Cloud, that allows Sugar Integrate to connect securely to your on-prem ERP installation without having to open any sort of ingress ports on your firewall. Though that is an option too. Like if you can also just whitelist the Sugar Integrate IP addresses, and that'll allow our Sugar Integrate to connect to your on-prem ERP. But even a lot, what you do find sometimes too is that there isn't direct access options for ERP systems. A lot of them don't even have APIs. So how does that work? Well, there's usually you can connect directly to the database. So that's often how a lot of these on-prem ERP integrations work, is that you're actually talking directly to the database, whether that's Oracle or SQL Server or whatnot. And so Sugar Integrate actually supports connecting directly to a database. Or in many cases, for example, with Sage products, a lot of them will support, rather than having an API, especially the older on-prem Sage products, rather than having an API, you're able to import or export CSV files. And so you're able to, and a common pattern is to work with CSV files, generate them, leave them on an SFTP location where they can be consumed, right, or exchanged. And that's another approach that is very commonly implemented on top of Sugar Integrate. That's another approach that's available. So basically, we've got you covered. If there's an on-prem ERP integration, Sugar Integrate can be used there, and it also makes it when you're ready to transition to the cloud, to a cloud-based ERP or a number of cloud-based ERP solutions. Sugar Integrate has that reusable logic, right, that makes that transition a lot easier. So you're really just replacing the adapter, so essentially the connector, the end connector, and not the common resources procedures, which is really where all that integration logic lives. And so it really reduces the cost and of re-implementing an integration, because you're not rebuilding it from scratch again. You're just reconnecting to a new ERP system, right? And we also recognize the importance of ERP integration. So actually, Sugar is providing best practice templates for ERP integration to handle some of those core use cases, so that even when you're building, these ERP integrations, you're not going to be starting from scratch. You're going to have sort of some best practices to work from. So that's how Sugar Integrate can help you with this trend of moving on-prem ERP to the cloud. So let's talk a bit about some of the supported products. There's a number of different, what I call sort of true ERP vendors or solutions out there. A number of different SAP products, from SAP Business One to SAP S/4HANA, Microsoft products, NetSuite, Workday, and there's more ERP adapters coming. But let's say you're not using a full-blown ERP or using a finance package and an accounting system. There's a wide support of a different finance and accounting applications within the Sugar Integrate catalog. Things from QuickBooks Online to Xero to Microsoft Dynamics, finance and operations, Sage Intacct, etc. And then again, if you got an e-commerce, you're doing sales through your website. If you got an e-commerce solution, you're doing sales through your website, you're using Shopify or Magento. These are all adapters that are supported as well. So there's a huge catalog of connectors to these core systems that contain a lot of this financial data that you really want to have connected back to Sugar. So let's talk about, just remind you briefly about the different Sugar solutions that Integrate supports. We support Sugar Professional, Enterprise, Sell, Serve, Market is coming, and that ground to cloud agent that I mentioned before. If you happen to be using Sugar Pro or Sugar Enterprise on premise behind a firewall, guess what? Ground to cloud works for that too. So that same sort of secure story for accessing your on-prem data, that also works with Sugar Enterprise and Professional for those of you deployed on premise. So with that, I'd ask if there's any questions.
So there was one question when you were showing the all the different products that are available for integration. Where do we go to find out when the new integrations get added with some of the other ERP products that may not have been listed on there?
Yeah, so I'd say when the new adapters become available, we definitely have, it'll be part of our quarterly release announcements. So yeah, as those new adapters, those new products get added, I think they will definitely be doing press releases and things like that on that. Actually, Rod, do you have anything you want to add to that, Rod, about how we'd communicate about new product support?
No, that's exactly how we'll do it. We'll also, if you go to our website, there's a listing of all the adapters, and I think this just sparks an idea. one thing I'll do is as we add new adapters, I'll put a marker or something on them to show that, just recently added or something like that to make it easier to determine what's there. So so those are the two ways we'll have announcements, and then I'll update. There's a PDF document on our website, and I'll list them as newly added.
All right, great, thank you. Yeah, because there's so many ERP products out there, and everyone's using many different things, so it would be definitely be helpful as we field those types of questions to know that. And that was actually the only question that came in. So Matt, Rod, thank you guys so much for this, and we obviously are recording this, so we'll send out a copy, and we're collecting all of these webinars that we have done. If you have not, if you missed part 1 or part 2, definitely let me know, and I can provide you with those recordings, and then we'll do our final session in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much for attending. Matt, Rod, thank you again, and everyone have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.